really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Haliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It can't be 21-7. You gotta be kidding me. 21-7 on free throws. It just can't be not in a physical game. They're a physical team, and it can't be that lopsided. It's impossible.
That's Mike Woodson right there after the game last night. IU had the opportunity, and like so many other performances this season, they were unable to close, which prioritizes Saturday afternoon in that date in Bloomington against Ohio State. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. James is over there. I am John, and we're going to get into a lot of basketball over the course of the afternoon. I will say this. Mike Woodson had an incredible point. And I know everybody's against Mike and nobody likes Mike. Mike had a point. Really what that game came down to was the lack of execution. Here's the thing that stood out. And that one kid that shot a 35-footer that went in against the shot clock, that was just a bunch of crap. We all know that. I mean, hell, I think it was Galloway. Galloway was even out there and like repping with an arm up 35 feet away. And he drained it. But the lack of execution, and the thing that stood out to me, and this I thought really happened in the last 5 or so minutes, it didn't seem like that 50% of the IU passes reached its intended receiver or its destination without being deflected. I thought that the end of that game for Oregon defensively was like a Tom Crean you-know-what dream. Everything had a finger, a hand, a fingernail on it, it seemed. I thought Ballo late played about as hard as we've seen Ballo play. Again, this song and dance is something that IU fans have witnessed the entirety of the season, just being unable to close. But that doesn't mean I don't agree with what Mike Woodson had to say after the game, because it was a physical game and the disparity in free throw shooting was pretty lame. I know that you're not supposed to agree with anything that he says because he is outgoing and you're going to get somebody new, but I absolutely agree with that. But you can also watch it, and that 35-footer from Shellstat combined with, again, nothing easy passing-wise. And I'm not talking about Oregon put on some solid, and I say solid defensive pressure, but it wasn't anything overwhelming. They just got a finger on everything. And to me, we'd seen the lack of closing. That's really what has cost this team, this IU team this season, is the lack. They're in position, but they're unable to close. You think about having that 1-point lead, what was it, with about 6 minutes to go, and then Oregon defensively closed the door. They hit that ridiculous three, and it was ridiculous. I had to argue with my mom, James, about this. As my mom said, well, that kid does that all the time. You got to go out. I said he had a hand up. He was 35 feet from the basket. It was desperation. It went in. What the hell are you going to do, Cheryl? Zip it. I didn't say that, but what are you going to do? But what you can do is you can be more aware of what the passes. And I know that Galloway out there, when you got Bamba on him and he's right up in your shorts. That obviously can take you out of any rhythm whatsoever. But go back and watch that. It seemed like every pass was presented with a major obstacle for IU late in that game. And what you equate that to is execution or lack thereof, which has been in in-game situations this season. It has been something we have frequently witnessed. And you saw it again last night. We'll get into that coming up a little bit later on in the show. The Boilermakers, 0 issue with Rutgers. And it was a night when everybody was hitting. That is what I talk about a springboard into something. And not so much into the Big Ten tournament, or as I talk about the Pacers, into the regular season and into the postseason. But with Purdue, now you get to go on Friday, which I think is ridiculous scheduling. You play Tuesday night at home, and then you got to play at Illinois coming up on Friday night. I mean, put that thing on Saturday or Sunday, but on Friday night's lame. I know it's more money, and everybody gets aroused by the more money aspect of it, but I think that part is lame. That gets you going for an Illinois team that recently has looked really good. If you watch them on Sunday against Michigan, you know exactly what I'm talking about right there. But it was basically more than, in this case, just a show for Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren. Fletcher Lawyer got involved, and that's what you want to see. I mean, you want to see, if you get a consistent at that level third, then you got something working right there. And I know a lot of people got into both Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey being lottery selections, and that's how Rutgers looked. A lot of the reason why Purdue and, for example, Fletcher Lawyer knocked down threes is because they were all wide-ass open. And that's what you do when you're a good shooter, especially as you knock down wide-ass open shots. But that was a good springboard for 21-9 and 13-6 Purdue as they head to Champaign on that weirdness that is a Friday night that I absolutely hate. See, Kevin says that was normal for Shellstad, and that's exactly what she said. My mom said, that's normal for that kid. I thought, you don't even know who he is. Here's what really pisses me off about my mom. And she tells me this all the time. It's like she's digging at me. You ever have your 79-year-old mom dig at you? Because she gets, for some reason with DirecTV, she gets the NBA season ticket package free. So she gets all these NBA games for free. Guess who does it? Me. Guess who's pissed off about that? Me. Since 2000. This is 25 years now I've been with DirecTV or Verizon or whatever a half-assed thing this is now. And I don't get a damn thing for free, much less the NBA package. And there's my mom down in GC sitting up and watching late-night games. Like last night, I was watching the Suns and the Clippers. And she's watching all these West Coast games all the time and, explaining stuff to me. Yeah, she digs on basketball, I will say that. See, I thought there was a hand up on Shellstat from 35 feet away. But, man, that's Kevin. That's exactly what she said. That kid does that all the time. You don't even know who that kid is. Well, didn't they say he's from the same high school as Peyton Pritchard? Yeah, they did, all right? They did say that. That's pretty funny, though. Dustin DePurek's going to join us. Pacers get a win last night. I thought that was a very important win, and I know it was a second of a back-to-back. I was talking to Hammer and Nigel in our normal meeting before we go on, and they were talking about, the Pacers and playing the Rockets, and it was a second of a back-to-back. But the Rockets didn't have their front liners with much at all participation on Monday night at OKC. That was, in large part, a portion of their bench that rarely gets to play. But last night they brought it because last night they felt that was going to be the game, more so than OKC, that they could get in a back-to-back road situation. And in the final 6 minutes, the Pacers put it away. All right, I'll go ahead and lay out the show for you. It is busy today. I've got time for you because we care. We'll give stuff away, so sit tight for that. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is from the Indianapolis Star, and he follows the Indiana Pacers with their win last night over Houston at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Dustin DePurek joins us. So where would you bottle the final 6 or so minutes compared to some of the better minutes you have seen from this Pacer team this season last night?
Yeah, I mean it's up there, especially because the way the defense played against a team that's really relentless. I mean, I'm really impressed by this Houston team, just how good they've gotten this fast. Obviously, it's a bunch of high draft picks, but they're still young guys, and they've obviously bought into his kind of identity and a style of play. And they were really getting to the rim at will for a lot of this game. 54 points in the paint and just owned the glass, 58-35. Is just a totally remarkable rebounding margin in an NBA game. I mean, 24-5 on offensive boards is nuts. But the Pacers kind of hung in there with it. Even as they had a big lead, they lost it, and so to fall behind and see the lead slip away and then sort of turn it right back around. And I think it was 2 of 19 in the last 9 minutes of that game, or 8:54 of that game, somewhere in that range. I think Houston was 5 of their first 5 to start the fourth quarter, and then they ended up 7-24. So I mean, it's really remarkable defense. I mean, they turned around, played zone for a lot of that to make sure there were some bodies in the paint. And they're not a team that plays a lot of zone, but they did a good job of just walling off the paint, made it difficult to drive. Make sure they were contesting threes. Obviously, Houston's not a super great 3-point shooting team, but just did a good job of just not giving up too much. And if they were giving up second chance opportunities, not necessarily giving up points. Basically, I mean, there was that one play where I don't know how many rebounds the Rockets got, but the Pacers kept challenging every single one of them. They got 57 paint attempts, 21 field goal attempts on second chances. They were 6 of 21 on second chance, 27 of 57 in the lane. That tells you just how much the Pacers were fighting once the ball got in the lane to stop them from scoring. So a lot of really impressive stuff, plus some smart offense in those last 6 or 7 minutes after Houston done a really good job kind of slowing them down in the third quarter of really trying to take away opportunities for Tyrese Haliburton after he'd gone off on them in the second quarter. I think they just did a really good job of adjusting, knew they were going to have to, knew it was going to be a game like that, but still just kind of executing what they were asked to do. It was impressive. It's got to be top 5, I think, performance.
What's interesting about that? Dustin DePierre of the Star covers the Pacers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I think what we found out last night, that if you're minus 13, for example, at the free throw line, that is going to weigh heavier than being minus 23 in the rebounding situation, right? Is that what we point to, is between winning and losing last night? Because you look at the Rockets at the free throw line were a mess. 50%, 13 of 26. So, obviously you leave 13 hanging out there. To me, that represents a greater cause or mountain to try to climb than even if you're minus 23, which is robust on the glass as the Pacers were against them last night.
Yeah, no, it's pretty significant for sure. I mean, I think when you said minus 13, I thought we were talking about the margin.
Yeah, when I start regurgitating analytics, we all get off the rails a little bit here, so we know that. Yeah,
the Pacers were perfect. I mean, they were only 10 of 10. They didn't draw as many. Obviously, especially if you're going to play the way the Rockets do. I mean, so much of it is about physicality of getting the ball in the lane and making you foul them. But if you're going to make somebody foul you, you have to take advantage of it. So you're going to leave that many opportunities at the line. I mean, that's a lot of points there. I mean, obviously, you go 26 for 26, and nothing else changes, and you got a tie ball game. So major difference. I mean, obviously. The offensive rebound thing can be bigger, but I mean you have to finish those. I mean, I didn't realize just how bad it was. 6 of 21 on second chance field goals is pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
Really takes a lot of work just I mean, like obviously a lot of those cases. I think the second chance margin was 18-7.
Well, and you got to consider too, Sengun had a couple of opportunities where the ball just kind of bounced his way, and he had zero resistance. So you're talking about 2 of those 6 was just basically a layup just by circumstances, by luck.
Right. No, a couple of them were. I mean, basically, any chance the Pacers had to kind of respond and fight back and basically and try to contest something, they did a really good job of doing it. I mean, I think Turner was only credited with 4 blocks. They took one away from him after the game, and I think Rick Carlisle said he deserved 7. He did alter a bunch. I thought basically we got his hand up and sort of just changed the trajectory of the shot. And they did a lot of that. I mean, between him and Siakam and Bryant and even Neesmith to some degree, you had a lot of or Toppin. I mean, you had a lot of hands go high. And just force them to shoot over you, and just they did a really good job at that. Ended up with 6 blocks. Definitely could have been more because there was a lot. They just got in the Rockets' way, And so again, you're getting up there, and a lot of times you're drawing contact, but if you're not taking advantage of the contact, it's an issue. And the Rockets left a lot of those opportunities, but the Pacers did a good job of making sure that those opportunities were a lot harder than that they usually are on offensive rebounds.
Pacers got back-to-back in Atlanta Thursday and Saturday. Dustin DePurek of the Star covers the Pacers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So historically speaking, what are we talking about right now? And it's magnified since the All-Star break from Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I mean, it's obviously I don't even know how you put it in statistically, historically, because it's not just how good he is, it's how much of a change it is from the way the year started. I mean, and obviously he'd kind of hit a level really from late November through the All-Star break. I mean, he was having bad games every once in a while, but I mean, he was still mostly at about his career averages, averaging like 18 and 8.5 a game, and shooting 49% from the field, 40% from three. Mostly looked like himself since the end of November. But this is wild, and when you compare it to how bad he was the first 15 games of the season, it's just really an incredible job. I mean, he's just hitting everything. I mean, I think he's 54% from three since the break. If you take away that 4 of 11 game to start it, which isn't bad, but I mean, he's at 60%. I mean, it's just crazy. Obviously, it's not sustainable. I mean, there's going to come a time in the not too distant future where he's going to have a rough night. But the assist to turnover is also nuts. I mean, I think it's 84-8 at this point overall in terms of totals. I mean, just really, I mean, he just looks like a totally re-energized, rejuvenated player. I mean, it's the best basketball I've ever seen from him in the years I've been covering him.
So if there was going to be a night to be off, I thought maybe last night was going to be it too, because that first meeting back in November in Houston, I mean, he was a shell of what we witnessed last night, and he talked about that with you guys in the post-game presser too. Does he go back and watch the really bad performances and soak that up? Because a lot of guys, they suggest burn the tape and move on. But it seems like that he's been somebody that goes back and says, all right, well, that's how I was then, and this is how I'm playing right now. Does he commonly do that?
No. That was a we versus an I kind of deal.
Oh, okay. I got you.
We're playing teams that we played before, and so I've had to watch them. And it's sort of like when they've been in sort of team film sessions instead of say, like, hey, these are the guys that you're looking at. I mean, he sees himself on film. It's not like, hey, he's not doing it to himself to get himself psyched up. It's a team film session, ergo, it's, you got to watch who you were then. And so I kind of got him in that question by accident because I said, have you reached the point that you can laugh about November yet? When you're shooting it this well, can you just laugh off the fact that you had that bad of a start? And he's like, I'm not there yet. He said that might be later. He says maybe when I see it on the, because he's part of that Starting Five documentary, and they've got all kinds of footage from that period. I remember seeing a lot of those kind of, videographer folks hanging around, and it's, seeing some of the press availability with him and seeing just some of the stuff he was going through. And so they're going to have footage that, reminds them of just how rough it was, not just, in games, but after. And so I don't think he's obviously not standing up and saying, I don't want to see that. Don't remind me. So he has the maturity enough to say, okay, I have to watch this. It's not about seeing me. It's about seeing them. I have to know what they're going to do, what they're all about, what kind of defenders I have to expect, what kind of blitzes, what kind of coverages. That's more what it's about. But it does force him every once in a while to see a game where he didn't look at. I mean, I think Memphis is another one where they spent a lot of time on thinking about it because, and I think game plan is a big reason why they've been better. It's obviously he was not as good he was not playing as well, but I think they've done a lot better job, collectively of springing him open. I think Miles Turner's done a great job of really setting a lot of high ball screens to get him going downhill with some momentum, so he can either pull up or he can get to the rim and or dish or anything like that. It's allowed him to play, I think, a lot more freely. And I think there's along with him just playing better and him just making shots, a big piece of it is them, seeing some X's and O's things and ways that they could, just kind of with some fundamental stuff, get him some more space and get him freed up from some of the guys that really been trying to lock him down.
Hey, Dustin, what are the odds Benedict Mathurin gets back on the floor coming up tomorrow night in Atlanta?
My guess is just the way Rick's talking, and it's only so all I have is just the basis of what Rick says and just how he's been on the just how he's been on the injury report. this is shot in the dark. This isn't with any pre-known information, but I would guess he'll be questionable on the injury report. If he's not, then you can bet he's not playing. If he's doubtful or out, then he's obviously he's out. He's out, but I think he's doubtful. He's not going to play. But if he's questionable, there's a chance. It seems like he's playing toward it, but it does seem like Rick wants to be careful with this because he just says, he's just not right. And Ben is the type that, like, if he's missing games, if he's willing to miss games, that means he must not feel right because it's a high bar for him. He hasn't missed a lot, in his third season. He outside of obviously the season-ending injury, torn labrum, which he played through. By the way, basically that he came out of that game, but he played the rest of it, and then it wasn't until after that he had an MRI that showed the torn labrum. He's a guy that if he can play through pain, he will. And so, if it gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's affecting him enough to know that he's a less effective player, that tells you it must be really something. And so it's not just the left wrist sprain, it's apparently a knee thing, or there's apparently an Achilles thing. So, they want to be cautious about this, and they are kind of ramping him up. They said he would ramp up and have a individual workout today that was going to be a little bit more enhanced, as they put it. So obviously we'll see what comes through his. 50-50 is probably, where I would put it. Obviously that's a, cop out of an answer, but, the way he's talking about it, I think that seems to fit. There's a chance. It just depends on how well it all comes together for him.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like practice time has been of incredible value for this team this season. It has been sparing, no doubt about that. Will they get an opportunity while in Atlanta in that tweener day on Friday to get back on the practice floor? How will they handle that day between?
Yeah, they could. They've done it in the past. It certainly depends on them. I don't think they feel like it's been interesting to watch just how practice time is viewed in the NBA. It's over my time covering it and kind of when they practice on the road and when they don't. Literally, from a beat writer standpoint, like, I don't know if they're practicing until that day. So they kind of make those decisions on the fly. So I won't know until Friday, to be honest, in terms of if I have anywhere to go that day. I'm sure they'll do something. But, I think they might, but I think it's not so much that it's like, okay, well, this is a team that has to practice every day. It's just when it goes a while because, they've just really stacked the schedule. It's been really every other day most of the year. And so, if they didn't go today, and so I would think they would at least look into it. Certainly, I would think it would matter in terms of how Thursday night goes. If it's, certainly if they don't play well, they'll probably practice. It depends on a lot of potential factors. I'm sure they've already got a place reserved if they want to. But I think they don't need to do it all the time, but every once in a while, the times where they have, it's been really good about just getting them recentered because you've seen them reach a point where it's like, okay, they're getting a little bit sideways here and they need a day. But the rest is also important too, with as fast and furious as the games have been all year, that there have been a lot of days where they needed to not practice as well, just to keep themselves stay off their feet for a while.
Yeah, Pacers 35-25 as of right now because of where the Bucks stand. By the way, the Bucks on the inbound, what is that, next week? Coming up a couple of different times. So that's going to describe a tale. That is coming up, and the Pistons just right on the tail right now in the 6 hole at 35-27. That is the Eastern Conference standings as of our conversation with Dustin DePierac of the Star, covers the Pacers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Appreciate you, my brother. Great job last night. Continue that, and we'll yak at you again here very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks as always, JMV.
You got it. Dustin DePierac of the Star on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Yeah, essential period to say the least. I didn't bring this up. Skivvy says the Pacers broke that Tuesday night jinx. They were 0-5 going into Tuesday night games last night. Shake that bad boy loose. They got up 17, and I'm telling you, Houston got that thing down to 2 in a blink of a stinking eye. That is a talented group. May not still be there as far as challenging at the top out west, but that is a talented group. BT disagrees with me. Lack of execution, yes. Fouls, no. Foul calls were 15, Oregon 12. It didn't look that egregious. I just think 21-7 from the free throw line. I think that's what Woodson said. That's what it was. Yeah, it's not good. And Oregon was especially late. I thought they were extra physical. So I would agree with Woodson. And you do have to battle. Even if you are the outgoing guy, you have to battle because you know you're going to get Ohio State coming up into the regular season on Saturday, Big Ten tournament. Still probably in line for the NCAA tournament right now. But, man, that Ohio State game Saturday feel like a play-in? As of right now, Ohio State's like 10 slots better in the net than IU. Is that a play-in on Saturday? To that coming up in just a bit. The women of IU on the court tomorrow. I believe that's an 8-9 game with IU and Oregon. Kind of an interesting matchup considering our next guest, because the former Miss Basketball in the state of Indiana from Hamilton Southeastern actually started her career at Oregon and is finishing her career in Bloomington at IU. That is Sydney Parish. Sydney is going to join us coming up on the other side. We shall discuss that whole dynamic. Top of the 4 o'clock hour, it's Bowen. We are getting closer and closer. A lot of NFL news today. Christian Kirk is going to be cut loose by the Jaguars at wide receiver. You've got noted wide receivers that want out and want new teams. DK Metcalf being at the top of that list. It's funny. I do understand this argument. If you want Anthony Richardson to be better, why would you not try to navigate to be in on something like this? Kevin Bowen and I discussed that, and who logically is going to get paid too much for them to jack with to try to keep. Kevin's going to join us at the 4 o'clock hour. Katherine Legge is, for the first time in 7 years, going to be the first woman to race in a Cup Series event in NASCAR. You know her certainly from IndyCar, and Katherine's going to join us at 4:30. And the voice of the Final Four, and you can also watch and hear him on TNT. Ian Eagle is back with the show coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Mary J. Blige tickets to give away, all that and more. So sit tight. Be a part of the show inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member today, and then thank me later. The stream, the app, HD Radio, and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
With JMV.
JMV does not suck at all.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Voice of the Final Four, Ian Eagle, a little bit later on. I think Ian's got Brooklyn and Golden State tomorrow night on TNT. That's correct, right, James? Katherine Legge. Good psychedelic furs re-entry right there. Shout out to Richard Butler. Mentioned Ian Eagle. Katherine Legge is in the NASCAR event in Avondale. That's Phoenix coming up this weekend. Kevin Bowen still on the show a little bit later on. And on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Should be interesting. Game 4 of the Big Ten Women's Tournament tomorrow at noon. It's the 8-seed Oregon, the 9-seed Indiana, and the former Miss Basketball who started her career in Eugene, Oregon, who's going to finish her career in Bloomington, joins us now. And her father's the pride of Spencer, Indiana, in Owen Valley back in the day. Sydney Parish joins us. Hello, Sydney. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
You ever had to sit through your old school film of your dad playing at Owen Valley back when you were young?
Unfortunately, yes. Many times.
Yeah. You know, here's an interesting dynamic at work here, Sydney. When I went to Eastern Green, and when I was a freshman, we were getting ready to play Owen Valley, and I wasn't your dad on the scout team. I was Greg Wright. I was the Greg Wright.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of stories of those two together from back in the day.
You know, they made me Greg Wright because I couldn't guard anybody, but I could shoot. So that's why I was Greg Wright.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
So how's this feel? It's almost like this is an end around, is it not, for this game coming up tomorrow, where you started, where you're going to end, and the two teams kind of meets on the floor tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it. I'm excited to get back on the floor. It's nice that we're going to be playing Oregon, what feels like at home, with the Big Ten tournament back in Indianapolis. But I'm excited to kind of have another chance at them since we lost when we were out in Eugene a couple months ago. So it'll be nice to come back to Indy and play them again. And like you said, it's like my career is ending. I started there, and I'm ending with a last game against Oregon.
Yeah, and obviously you want to push forward here and get that win. Yeah, coming up tomorrow. There's no doubt about that. I was always curious. How did you look back and view your time in Eugene?
Oh, I loved it. I always say that, I enjoyed both my years in Eugene, and it was so fun to be able to build relationships with a lot of the girls that I came in with. And, some of my best friends I met there. And, it was hard for me to leave, but I came to Indiana, and it was the best decision I've made to come back home and to be around family and friends. And but my heart, I'll always have a piece of my heart in Oregon. So it'll be fun just to see some of the girls that I know tomorrow and some of the staff members. So no bad blood between me and them.
It's Sydney Parish, again, IU and Oregon tomorrow at noon. That is game 4, round number 2 of the Big Ten Women's Tournament. How's this season gone to date? If you have a moment to reflect, look in the rearview mirror, and then think about tomorrow, how do you think this whole thing has gone down this season for you and your teammates?
I think we've had a very unique year. We had a lot of ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but the Big Ten is one of the best conferences in the country, and I think every game has proved that from top to bottom. I think it was even hard for some teams to make it into the Big Ten tournament this year. So, just trying to get out of the valleys as quick as we can. And I think we're peaking right when we're supposed to. We had a big win in West Lafayette a couple of days ago. So just being able to drive right up the road to Indianapolis is going to be great for us. And we're prepping really well, and we're excited to make a run in the Big Ten tournament. And then once March Madness comes around, try to secure a spot in that tournament as well. We're
going to have Fishers, Indiana rocking it tomorrow at noon down there, aren't we, right?
Oh, yeah. It should be good. There will be a lot of people there, hopefully a lot of Hoosier fans.
Yeah, where do you think you guys are right now in terms, from everything I've seen mock-wise, I don't know how much you pay attention to it, that they have you guys solidified in the NCAA tournament. Where do you guys feel you are going into this game tomorrow?
I think we're better than what people are, have us seated right now. And I think that just shows the growth we've had towards the end of the season. But I don't think we're really trying to look at seedings or anything like that, but just trying to get a win and have one day at a time win. We got to beat Oregon tomorrow. Then we're on to USC, a team that we played really closely, and we were up the entire game on. So, I think we have a good chance to make a big run in this tournament, and then I think our seedings will just keep getting higher and higher for the NCAA tournament.
It's been a strange ride in a good way for you, and there's been a lot of things like it's been ever evolving. Then one of those things took place this year in your final year, and that is the additions of those West Coast teams. Now I know you're familiar because you played in the Pac-12 before, but how was that dynamic being a part of the travel schedule at IU and then the implementation of those new teams out west this season?
Yeah, I think it's been a great addition to the conference. You know, it makes our conference a lot more talented, a lot harder, but also that travel. I think when we went on our trip to Oregon and Washington, it was about a 7-day trip. So I think that takes a toll on your body as well. But thankfully for us, we only have to make that trip once. For the West Coast teams, they have to come to the East Coast and Midwest a little bit more often.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that as student athletes, we're used to the travel. We're used to the grind when we get into mid-February and it gets hard and we feel like we're in the gym every single day, all day. I don't think it's going to make a big difference coming into March.
So Sydney Parish of IU with us again, noon tomorrow, IU and Oregon at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Now, I don't want to talk about the next step because you're not in the next step yet, but I am kind of curious, any thoughts in your mind about what you want to do once your career at IU is complete?
Of course. You know, the main goal, obviously, hopefully, make a roster spot on a WNBA team, whether that's getting drafted or signing a training camp contract and making a team. That's always the first goal. But second goal, plan B, would really be in the sports media field, being a sports analyst, whether that's basketball, football.
Hell yeah.
Reporter.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I graduated last spring with a degree in sports media. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to next.
Social influencer, too, is what you are. Are you a social influencer?
That I guess you could say that sometimes.
What's the last thing you tried to influence? What was it?
Oh gosh, can't remember what it is, but we have a few things coming into March, so be on the lookout for my social media.
Well, wait a minute, can you let us in? That's more than just a tease right there.
Some beauty products, some credit card companies.
Whoa.
You know, you'll just have to see.
Look at that right there. Social influencer, broadcasting, playing. Hey, I was going to ask you this because I honestly was digging it. Have you watched the 3-on-3 stuff on TNT on Friday nights when you get the opportunity? Do you like that?
Yeah, I think it's amazing for the league. I mean, it keeps WNBA players in the States on their off season making a lot of money, and they're in Miami too, a great area, and they're surrounded by each other and surrounded by great talent. It's really fun to watch as well, just keeping people in shape and trying to keep them as healthy as possible.
Have you talked to anybody that's been involved in that about the entire process and how it is?
I haven't actually. I've heard a little bit from not exactly players, but on the media side, how it's going. But it seems like it's pretty cool. I haven't heard anything bad about it yet.
I'm a tremendous fan of 3-on-3 too, by the way. I think 3-on-3, especially full court 3-on-3. I know it's not your normal full court,
I know.
But I like full court 3-on-3 because what it does, I mean, it's a priority. You got to guard. I mean, you got to get back and you got to guard because there's nobody between you and your person to the basket. So.
Exactly. It keeps you conditioned, that's for sure.
There's no doubt about that. It is Sydney Parish with us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I did want to end on this. This goes back a number of years. I think you were in junior high at the time, and I may have brought this up when you've been on the show in the past. I do these things called these backyard bourbon broadcasts, and I come to somebody's house, and we do a live show in the backyard, and it's just a big party. And you were I believe, you weren't participating in the party, but it was in your neighborhood, and your dad came over. Do you remember that? Your dad came over.
Do.
We had a radio party in your neighbor's backyard.
I do remember that.
I think you were at junior high at the time. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I had to have been in like 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah, I mean, you're aging me incredibly here, but that's okay. But no, it was cool back then because I remember somebody, and I started talking to your dad. I didn't know your dad was there, and obviously I grew up knowing a great deal about your dad. And then somebody said, "Hey, he's over there," and we started talking. and he was talking up your game, and he could not have been more accurate about your game back then.
Oh yeah. He's always been a big supporter of mine.
Yeah. No, well, seriously, those were some great teams he was a part of in high school back in the day. And then, obviously Ball State, everybody around Ball State remembers that 90 team then too.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it was a good time. Hey, make some more memories. I know they've been great for you so far, but make some more memories now before you move on to whatever career step is going to be next. And stay in touch with the show. It's always a great enjoyment to have you on here, Sydney.
I will. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You got it. Sydney Parish right there of IU on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. That is a true story. It was the very early stages of our Larceny Bourbon Backyard Bourbon broadcast. And we're up at Big Red's place in Fishers. In fact, I've got a great memory of this. I was supposed to go see Steely Dan and Hall & Oates at Ruoff later on that night, and I bailed on it. And I think everybody else went, and I didn't go, but we had a Backyard Bourbon broadcast, and her dad was there as a part of the neighborhood, and she was in junior high and came over and was a part of that as well. I want to say that may have been the first year we've ever done it. And if you were fortunate enough to ever have us at your house for one of these backyard things, these are awesome. And she was at a part of that. That was, as you can tell now, since this is her final season at IU, that was back when she was a junior high member. But people were telling me how good she was going to be, and then obviously her credentials speak for herself. IU in Oregon coming up tomorrow. That is a noon start, Big Ten Network. You can check it out. The Ducks, the 8 seed, IU, the 9 seed. That is game 4 of the Big Ten tournament. Now, it is officially underway already. In fact, Washington and Minnesota tipped at 3:30. Nebraska and Rutgers, and then Iowa and Wisconsin are those games that follow. So underway with the Big Ten women's tournament right now. And Sydney Parish of IU on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Top of the hour, Kevin Bowen. Katherine Legge is going to race a NASCAR Cup Series event, the first woman to do so since Danica 7 years ago. Katherine Legge is going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. And the voice of the Final Four, and you can check him out on TNT. Ian Eagle is going to check in the 5 o'clock hour as well. Don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Got a busy show coming up today. I know it's weird. We're not on the road today at all. Tomorrow at all. Friday, I don't think we're on the road either, which is just a level of weirdness I can't quite comprehend. Jeff writes this, JMV, I'm glad the Pacers beat the Rockets last night. I thought it was so arrogant of them to assume they could beat us by resting their starters on Monday night in Oklahoma City. Pacers are not pushovers. Glad they won. I'm right there with you on that. I know you get sick and tired of me, I'm sure, of propping him up. I thought Miles, especially in the first 3 minutes, he got saddled with 2 fouls, and I thought, well, this is going to be a mess. And he hung in. The final 6 minutes was some high-level stuff. And, again, it goes to show you why he is so necessary. And, listen, I know, for example, I have helped, along with his higher level of play, create now the movement of his level of necessity and importance to this team in the levels in which they reach. There's only a couple of outliers. And as I stated to Alex Golden last week, I always look at it this way. I try to simplify everything for you. And the reason why I do that is I don't, what do they say, get over your skis? I don't get over my skis because I know I'm not very bright in general. So I try to keep things as simple as possible. And if you're somebody, the very small percentage that still believe that he is not essential personnel, then you're just a basketball dumbass. And that's really as simple as I can make it. You just are. And then it probably gets to a little bit more than basketball. It's probably related to something else. So I think that's more of a, you look in the mirror and truly try to understand. I mean, get real with yourself. Realize what you don't know. And clearly, that would be anything about Pacers basketball in terms of winning. We'll just keep it simple. And that's what I do. I know everybody else can be complex, and that's good for them, but that's just never been me. Did you hear me try to go all analytical with Dustin DePurac, and he was throwing such a curve? I looked like the late Fernando Valenzuela in 1981 throwing a screwball to Dave Kingman. He was all over the dish trying to hit it. I can't go higher level analytical speak because that's just not me. But I will tell you what you need to know. And again, especially, it was magnified last night against a really good team. That importance in the final 6 minutes. And really, that's all you need to know. So hopefully you do. But again, we are a much higher percentage now, which is a good thing because it means you also evolve. You all of a sudden now, those that haven't been on board, you're getting the smarts real good. So thumbs up. Smarts are real good. JMV, assume the region is too far for a Backyard Bourbon broadcast, huh? We have a hell of a setup with a pool so you can show off the updated physique. I'm going to tell you what. Backyard Bourbon broadcast with a pool this year, it is Speedo time, James. It is grapes. There'll be grapes being smuggled in Backyard Bourbon broadcasts. The grapes are going to be smuggled in and then smuggled back out.
You're just going to be sitting there flexing and posing and showing off the form.
I'm just going to be maybe shirtless forever. The smuggling of grapes, James, will be taking place.
Whenever you do your 500 broadcast with Tony Katz, you'll just be sitting up there, shirt off, hanging out.
Can you imagine?
He'll be in a scarf or whatever he normally wears.
Scarf and an overcoat like he's Morrissey, yeah. It's funny. You guys are all agreeing with my mom. I told my mom this morning. She calls me, seriously. She calls me to talk about the games last night at 8 in the morning. And normally I am up, but I was up really late last night. And she calls. She goes, did I get you up? And I said no. And I kind of have a voice. I have a bit of a cold. So it sounds like I've been drinking all night and I'm drunk. And she says, I get you up? No. Wait, did you get drunk last night? No. No, you didn't get me up. And no, I didn't get drunk last night. Well, they just didn't get a good hand up on Shellstat. Well, he was 35 feet from the basket. I thought it was a good enough hand up. Well, that's what he does all the time. You haven't even seen him play before. Yes, I did when Purdue played there back in January. Pretty funny. Sometimes I love the fact that my 79-year-old mom loves basketball seemingly as much as I do. I mean, just the biggest Pacer fan out there. She actually has Obi's jersey right next to where she watches. But sometimes it can be a bit of a curse because we have to get it. Like, I get to debate with you for 3 hours, and then I'm going to go home and debate with her. It's pretty funny. And the Pacers broke that Tuesday night jinx. Get to that. Kevin Bowen, top of the hour. We're not too far away. They talk about the dominoes falling. Where are the dominoes falling for the Colts in terms of finding that quarterback competition? Christian Kirk available. DK Metcalf available. Get to that and a lot more. Kevin Bowen coming up on the other side. Katherine Legge is in the NASCAR Cup Series event in Phoenix coming up this weekend. We'll talk to Katherine and Ian Eagle, the voice of the Final Four in the 5 o'clock hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Don't go away. Bottom of the hour. First time in 7 years. This woman's been in a Cup Series NASCAR event coming up in Avondale. It's Phoenix this weekend. And the potential for getting a ride for Indy coming up in May. Katherine Legge, bottom of the hour, and Ian Eagle, the voice of the Final Four. I think Ian's got Brooklyn and Golden State tomorrow night on TNT. Ian's in the 5 o'clock hour right here on this here program. Sydney Parish a little bit earlier, Dustin DePirac a little bit earlier, and right now from the Fan Morning Show, along with Jeff and James, it's Kevin Bowen on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Hello, Kev. How you doing, brother?
Hello, John. Good to hear your voice.
Well, hell to the yes. How are things going in your world? Tell us stories. Tell us the good things, the happy times, the enjoyment you're having right now.
I'm good. This is always a top, maybe the top sports month on my calendar. I still feel like I'm in the generation of, in 49 states, it's just basketball, but this is Indiana, even though the NFL, I think, is king for a lot of people kind of my age. So I absolutely love this month. I'm hoping that your Sycamores, and enjoyed you and Matthew Graves talking yesterday, can get on a little run here, and we can get some mid-major magic to join Purdue and possibly Indiana in the dance. So, family's good, healthy, no complaints.
You know how drunk I have to be to say, man, I wish they could recreate the NIT atmosphere of a year ago. I go, what? What are you talking about? But no, it is absolutely true. That is noon tomorrow, too. There's nothing worse. I feel so bad last night because you had some really good teams, like Westfield being gone last night, for example. First night of the sectional, first night of any tournament when you are eliminated is the absolute worst, and I have a great deal of knowledge and history in doing that growing up, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I saw Kyle Nenrip mention, could you seed like the top two teams in the sectional? Obviously to a lot of historians, frankly, it's blasphemy to touch anything with the Indiana high school basketball tournament, but certainly we did it in a grand scale 30-some years ago. And, I felt awful. I was following along and actually watched a little bit of rake on the call of that one. And, for Shane Sumter's team to, really have given the Fishers everything they could handle in the regular season.
He's a good coach, Kev. You know it? Yeah. He really is.
And then to do it, again last night when, it looked like early on Fishers might kind of run away with that. It is a shame, the 6 o'clock slot on a Tuesday or, even tonight, with, some of the sectionals that have, the odd number of teams. So, it is a bum. I'd have to put a little bit more thought. Yeah, Todd Nenrip has always struck me as a dude that, like, when he offers a bit of an editorial or an opinion on, a high school take, he does it with plenty of thought. So I probably will agree with him, but I'll be curious if that's something that they ever explore.
Yeah, my high school team, Eastern Green, is the sectional host this season. They get ousted in the first game last night by a team that scores 31 points.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, listen, I could score 31 points in my sleep. To hell, 31 points. And I love everybody down there, but holy hell.
Did we four-corner it up? Did we hold the ball at the or is that just bad basketball?
I got a feeling that there were a lot of bricks thrown at the rims. Mm-hmm. They may need some more orange paint before any other games take place there. That's what I'm guessing.
Well, the score that I saw last night was my alma mater, Cathedral, putting up 91 on my wife's alma mater, Chittard, scoring 30. So Chittard is celebrating the great, illustrious, arguably the best player to ever play football in the state of Indiana, and Zach Martin, but the basketball seems to be lacking there off of Kessler Boulevard.
Yeah, that was rough. Matty Bowen upset about that? You guys get a little dig on one another when an alma mater beats the other?
That's ex-Chittard water girl, Maddie Lovers, back in the day.
She was a volleyball player, though, right?
Correct. Yes, volleyball player.
Well done,
man. her and a few of her friends dabbled in the water girl. And if I'm not mistaken, she would have to correct me on this. I don't think they've won a sectional since then. So I want to say it's probably about at least 20-some years for the Chittard basketball program.
I think I married a volleyball player is something you should have on your resume. Seriously. because I think that'd be I go, okay, cool, great. Then you're right at the head of the class as far as hiring is concerned. You married a volleyball player. Well done.
Yeah, I'm probably a lot more proud of that than she walks around like, I married a state champion golfer. I just don't think it has the same sort of cachet.
Nah, volleyball carries a little bit more credit than that, I would agree.
Yeah. Not a lot of clout there for the old reverse of that.
I know often my mom asked me this morning. She called up and my voice was deep and she said, "Did I get you up?" And she was kind of on me about IU's defensive situation last night against Shellstat, that 35-footer. And I thought Galloway had a hand up, and she tells me that he didn't really, and that that guy does that all the time. And I said, you don't even know who that guy is. And then she added, well, that's where Peyton Pritchard played high school ball, where he went. And I said, well, you heard that on the broadcast last night. I will tell you. Anyway, she asked me if I was drunk because I had a deep voice, and I kind of have a cold here a little bit. But was I? Because I thought that the defense was there, and it's one of those things where if Quinn says it, you know what's going in. You know what? The defense is good. If he makes it, he makes it. And then automatically when Quinn says that, the shot goes in regardless of the circumstances. That's kind of how I felt last night.
We did have a great Quinn moment last night. I don't know if you caught it. He gave us an off left on Dylan Brooks as Dylan Brooks just banged one home to take the lead there.
If he makes it, he makes it. There's a 100% chance that the shot's going to go in. That's great defense. If he makes it, he makes it. Boom, he makes it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised, and I don't know, maybe Mike Woodson was just generally pissed about the foul shooting because clearly he was, the discrepancy in those numbers. But, he was pretty mad post-game about their defense on that final possession. I'm like, dude, I mean, I understand you probably didn't want Shellstad to get it at all, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say their center Biddle had it kind of late in the shot clock, and, that's probably well away from the basket, so that's probably where you want the grenade, per se, to stay in his hands. But, I mean, Leal's closing out. I don't think you can be complaining too much about that, honestly. If you're really going to have a gripe, it's probably how the next 30 seconds played after that because, you have the turnover. I thought they played the foul game too early.
Well, there's no doubt about that. That was ill-advised.
Yeah.
What, about 56 seconds left on the clock when they did that?
Right, and then I think he took his last time out, if I'm not mistaken, kind of right around a minute ago. I feel like when you see most teams kind of play out those scenarios, Shellstad hits the three, you turn it over. I mean, if you get a defensive stop there, you're getting the ball back with, 20, 30 seconds to go in the game, and you're only down whatever that would have been, one or two. So, I probably had a little bit more of that issue. I didn't think that was an egregious misidentification of the scouting report or however you want to look at it. Yes, Shellstad is a great player, and yes, he does do those things, but still, that was late clock. It just, it's a 30-some footer with Leal, your best defender, closing out.
I think I said Galloway. It was Leal. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just think you chalk that up to a hell of a play by the kid, and if you really want to gripe about something, I would say how the next 30 seconds or so played out after that.
They so have needed this season because these losses, so many of them have been lack of execution in late game moments and very winnable circumstances. And you so needed Miles Rice to be what Miles Rice certainly has not been this season.
Yeah, they were making the Pac-12 comps a lot last night with Miles Rice, facing a former Pac-12 team, and I know Rice was probably a little bit more heralded than Kane and Carlisle, and Carlisle actually made a few plays last night, but there's times he gets in the game, John, I'm like, I forgot he was on the team. And, he was somebody that I think people were, high on. And, again, Rice had, I think, a little bit more accomplished season at Washington State. But, that is, guards, look at what happened in West Lafayette last night. Look at what those two guards have done, throughout their careers there over 3 seasons. You need steadiness there at the very least, and they certainly haven't gotten that out of the portal at all. And, I think a lot of people felt like, hey, Miles Rice, he's going to be the best guard since Yogi, or, however you want to look at that. And I know the bar hasn't been very high, maybe to define that. Point guard, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. But, there's just so much volatility with his play, and I would throw Carlisle probably even worse than that this season.
You mentioned Purdue. Is Fletcher Lawyer the key if he does something like that, maybe even in the neighborhood, not even necessarily the type of mirror game that he had last night, but in that neighborhood, is that the ultimate key that makes Purdue the best it can be?
I think that is a big one, but then I also think some of the others, doing what they've done lately, and that's what probably was frustrating about what happened in Bloomington, among other things. Like, I thought Miles Colvin actually, he was great the first half down there, and I think he has shot it better here as of late. Jakari Harris, of course, had some big shots last night. Heidi was key in that UCLA game. For the most part, and I think Lawyer has done this. I know Lawyer had some up and down moments maybe. I'm trying to think back to certainly his freshman season. But, he's been, I think, pretty good here, especially as of late in the Big Ten. It's like, okay, when the others get in the game, can teams just help off of all of those guys and say, no, we're doubling, Kaufman Wren at every chance we get. We're going to double Braden on the pick and rolls, et cetera, et cetera. But if, Cox is hitting an open shot and Colvin's doing that and Heidi's being scrappy and hitting open shots, I also think that can be, huge for Purdue. It's kind of what they're missing, I think, in the Lance Jones effect of, he hit some time. He was great. I remember in their win last year in Bloomington. Obviously, he hit that huge shot in the Elite Eight to kind of put that game on ice. Some of those, times when it's not overly reliant on, hey, you need Braden and Trey Kaufman-Wren to play like a first team, all Big Ten, All-American duo. So I actually think Lawyer shot it pretty well here as of late. So he's obviously key, but I think some of those others too, away from home, can they do that, come Big Ten and NCAA tournament time?
Morning show co-host Kevin Bowen's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Have you done any research on whether or not we've ever witnessed the Pacers going minus 23 on the glass and still winning, especially winning by that particular margin last night?
That's no, I haven't, but I would venture to guess there's probably no let alone winning. Hell, they won by double digits.
Yeah.
When it was all said and done. So I thought the final 6 minutes, I thought Miles was outstanding. I don't know.
Sure as hell was. Tell everybody else that too. Tell them all.
Yeah, I think I said this morning that you'd be jousting a little bit when you walked in there at 3 o'clock.
I'm poking out eyes in the studio today, buddy.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe slide over a few chairs so I don't have to
don't worry.
deal with that tomorrow morning.
Hopefully I'll remember to clean off the keyboard.
There's a lovely commute home thought here on this Wednesday.
Think about that when you hit the keys with that index finger tomorrow morning, buddy.
Yeah, I'll be sliding that keyboard over to Ricker tomorrow. I thought Miles and I thought Neesmith. I thought he was key as well. I know Haliburton certainly had a night that another $200 million night, which had really a lot of them here as of late. But I brought up that Brooks 3 earlier. It was shaky and. But then all of a sudden, Miles, and I get he had a big block number last night, but I thought he still altered, several others. And then I thought Neesmith had a couple key plays as well. And it was big. I thought, just second night of back-to-back, I get a lot of those guys didn't play for them, but they still traveled. No Fred VanVleet. You've got 6 or 7 on the road. Milwaukee keeps on, winning. I think when you add up all of that, it was just important to – handle business. Like when we say sometimes handle business with the Pacers, we're talking about a bad opponent. Like Houston's not bad. I think Houston's good, and I think Houston is a poor matchup problem, frankly, for the Pacers with all their length on the wings and in the front court. So very important to get that done before they hit the road a whole lot here.
What's more important, you think? The work on the glass or the alteration of shots with Miles? What do you think is more important to the success of this Pacers team? And here's why I say that is it seems like everybody and their brother gets to the basket, and anybody goes wherever they want and finishes under the rim when he is out. But even if he doesn't block, even if he doesn't alter, he persuades those trying to invade the lane to exit upon his appearance there. So what is more important to the success of this Pacer team? The glass work that we didn't see last night or his mere presence in there with the way this defense goes most of the time?
Oh, that's a good one. It's probably just his presence. I mean, because I think when he's trying to alter or trying to block a shot, first off, I think it's fine. Again, Miles is a very good player, but he's not the best rebounder given his size, but he is such an elite, again, rim protector, alterer, however you want to describe it. So, when he does that and when he, is trying to make those plays, again, it's going to leave him, or leave the Pacers in general, I guess, susceptible to some offensive rebound chances. I thought it was key last night. And for the most part, I don't think he's really battled this all year, but he got the two quick ones, and then, he was able to kind of stay out of foul trouble the rest of the way. So I thought just his presence of all right, do guys think twice about it? I think that's kind of an important part of it as well. I feel like there was one drive late. I'm trying to think who had it for Houston, where I felt like whoever was attacking kind of thought twice about it, of maybe over a 7-game series, does Miles, create that in an opponent of
rep's a real thing, Kev. I mean, reputation's a real damn thing.
Right. I mean, again, I know it's not, I don't want to compare it because I don't think it's exactly apples to apples, but how many times do you watch teams in the Big Ten just get in the paint against Purdue last year? And, of course, they dribble out of the paint. It's just it's that. And I think in the NBA it's kind of hard to do that night in, night out, but, over a playoff series, if you can stay out of foul trouble, and if guys don't think they can just attack you and finish through you, then I do think Miles has that game-changing ability for a defense that definitely needs it.
So Kevin Bowen, the morning show, along with James and Jeff. Kevin's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I think I had something else to ask, but I'll save that with the Pacers. I do want to get to the Colts, and obviously you're against Sam Darnold. I get that. I never thought that was going to be reasonable nor feasible anyway, and I just don't believe. I think you need an adequate backup, because that regardless of the circumstances with Richardson, he's probably going to miss time because that's what we know through the first 2 years. However, I think this whole competition thing is a bunch of BS, because there's zero way you go into this season. There is no way you're going to have a competition and then say, hey, guess what? Daniel Jones is going to be that week 1 starter. There's zero way. They tried that with Flacco last year. That didn't work. You're going to sink or swim with Richardson, and that's, to me, you're not going to save your gig if Daniel Jones comes in and you have a better season than you did a year ago, because you still have that huge wart of what are you going to do for the future at quarterback. So it all rides on Anthony Richardson, and this whole competition thing, to me, is to the benefit of the fans who really enjoy hearing about competition. That's it.
Yeah, and probably to the prospective agent out there of, whoever quarterback he's representing, of, okay, this is a possibility here, maybe compared to some other places. I would also say that I feel like you have a you have a little bit of the AFC is just different. It's just Band-Aids just don't fly, really. The NFC, you can maybe get by with some of that. AFC, I don't think it's hyperbole to say. You're kind of in a golden era with some of these quarterbacks, and, none of them are going anywhere. They're all still, young as well. So, I don't see it. We were kind of debating today of okay, are you going to, have this competition, split reps, or are you going to say, oh, yeah, there's our 4th overall pick. He's had all these ups and downs. He's been injured. Here's his first ever healthy NFL offseason. We feel like he needs to make fundamental changes. We probably should commit to him getting those reps in the offseason. That's why Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard are having this 3-year window. That's why you have preached offensive staff continuity. Houston's fired their offensive coordinator, but the Colts aren't. The Colts are sticking with what they've got on, the offensive side of the ball. Well, all of that was done for Anthony Richardson. It was not done for, again, into your Band-Aid quarterback to come in here and for seemingly the umpteenth year in a row since Andrew Luck has retired to win 8 or 9 games and be in the purgatory of the NFL. So, for all those reasons, I think you put it pretty well when you said, you just sink or swim with Anthony Richardson. I think that's how you kind of sum up 2025.
Can you make it better if everybody says, well, they're set at wide receiver and there's, DK Metcalf, why, and, the argument regarding Deebo Samuel, and I'm assuming you'll get to a much lesser degree Christian Kirk. But is there a way that you can make him better, his numbers better, if you still continue to improve his weapons? Right? I know that if he throws at 25 yards and a 15-yard out, there's nobody that's going to do a damn thing about that. However, can you improve it? And if so, why are they not at least trying to do that even more so than what they've accomplished so far?
Yeah, I mean, I would think tight end and running back, pass catching running back kind of falls into that. I've said quite often about Richardson and just the Colts passing game last year. They just couldn't find easy very well. Like just simple completions, not earth-shattering, not huge plays that show up on SportsCenter, just methodical, dink and dunk. Oh, yeah, there's, Joseph and I catching 10 balls in the Super Bowl for 60-some yards, or boom, there's Jack Doyle's entire career. Just like those sorts of plays just create steadiness, and the offense, especially the passing offense, did not have that at all last season. So, again, I'd probably point more to tight end and more to running back and again, more of that pass catcher. I don't think Jonathan Taylor's the most reliable when it comes to pass catching either. So, what does that look like over the next 2 weeks? Obviously, the draft, we've seen a lot of tight ends, whether it's Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, mocked to the Colts. So that is probably something that I'm keeping an eye on.
It almost seems to me like if you don't go completely overboard with trying to just get as many weapons as possible for him, that maybe deep down inside you don't believe in him any more than a lot of us don't believe in him right now. But maybe that's a wrong standard for thinking.
Yeah, it's just weird because, they also have this new defensive coordinator, so it's kind of like, and I get it, there's part of, people are like, hey, you don't get Richardson right, who cares? But I guess I don't look, and I don't think you're doing this, John, but, I don't look at Richardson right now and say his up-and-down nature through 2 years is because a lack of weapons. I don't.
No, you're right. No, you're right. But don't you try? What I'm suggesting is it's not like they've tried absolutely everything, it seems. But yes, you're right.
And again, I still think they could use more, certainly. But I also am not. Yeah, I'm trying to go a better young quarterback example of they've given him nothing. I don't feel that way about Richardson. Maybe it's part of it, but if you're slicing up the pie, it's a smaller part than some others.
Well done, Kev. I appreciate that. Continue, keep on, keep it on from 7 until 10 a.m. The Fan Morning Show with Kev, with James, and with Jeff coming up tomorrow morning. Always a pleasure, my brother. We will see you very soon, I am sure.
John, best to you. Thank you, sir.
You got it. Kevin Bowen on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Katherine Legge, first time in 7 years a woman's been in a Cup Series event in NASCAR. Not since Danica Patrick. And, Katherine Legge very well. Also hoping for an Indy car ride in the month of May. Catherine's going to call us coming up on the other side. Ian Eagle, the voice of the Final Four. That is coming up after 5. Do not go anywhere. It's a busy Wednesday. The stream, the app, HD Radio. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
The sportos, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
5 o'clock hour, the voice of the Final Four. And in the NBA, our good friend Ian Eagle is going to join us. CBS and TNT. Sydney Parish of IU a little bit earlier. IU Oregon coming up tomorrow at noon at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The women's tournament already underway as of today. Kevin Bowen moments ago joined us as well, and Dustin DePurak, Pacers over the Rockets last night. So we have discussed that. IU losing on the road at Oregon. Purdue's big win over Rutgers at home. All over the map today. Again, the stream, the app, HD Radio, and you can find us via the AAA Membership Lounge YouTube Live. Meantime, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline making her debut in the Cup Series race. Coming up in Phoenix, that is on Sunday, the Shriners Children 500, the 17th woman ever to compete in a Cup Series race. And you know her very well here from Indy. Certainly around the month of May, Katherine Legge joins us. Hey, Katherine, thank you so much for the time. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. And actually, I didn't realize that I'm the 17th, so I learned something new today.
Well, you did. See, that's what I'm here for, Katherine, is to teach.
There you go.
I'm here to teach. And actually, I did a little bit of research earlier because this is a pretty cool situation, and I was curious how it all evolved. So you get this opportunity in Phoenix on Sunday.
Ah, well, see, it's all part of a master plan. No, I'm kidding. I've wanted to do more NASCAR stuff for a while. Yeah. I did a handful of Xfinity races like 5 years ago, and I just don't know anybody in the NASCAR world really. Although now I'm getting to know people, and so I mentioned it, and I mentioned it to a couple of my kind of key partners, and they're like, "We should do that. Like, what do you need to do to be able to qualify to do some NASCAR stuff?" So I started talking to NASCAR, and they said, "Well, there's a process. You have to start off in the lower, like, I don't know, ladders of the series, if you like Xfinity or Cup or ARCA, and you have to work your way up through the length of the tracks." So they said, if you want to start at Daytona the beginning of the year, then you have to do it in an ARCA car because of the way the schedule is. I wasn't allowed to do Xfinity at a super speedway because I hadn't done a shorter oval. And so the way you get licensed and the way the rules work, this is where we had to do it. And then they said either COTA or Phoenix. And I was like, COTA, I'll have a whole other level of comfort if I can drive a road course because I know what I'm doing on road courses and I've driven hundreds of them. And then I just have to learn the car and the format and everything else. I've only done like maybe 10 ovals in my life, and they've all bar one, have been in IndyCar. So I didn't really think it was best to start Phoenix, but I'm starting at Phoenix, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to jump right in the deep end.
That's awesome. Katherine Legge is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I was thinking about this, too. I think the last time you were in an Xfinity Series race, that was Road America. Was it not, going back a couple of years now? So, yeah, it would be understandable why you would feel so much more comfortable in that setting. So does the situation on the inbound on Sunday at all make you a little bit more nervous, maybe give you a feeling you haven't had, in a race car in a long time?
For sure. I mean, I've never driven these cars. These guys are the most competitive series in the world. Like, there is 35 really, really good drivers out there. And, I would be lying and I would be stupid to think that I'm going to go out there and I've got something to prove. The only thing I want to prove is competence and that I can do all of the things in the right way. And hopefully if I can do that, then I'll get the opportunity to do more and progress up through the tracks as well as the series, and then, go from there. But right now it's a process that I'm having to go through, and I'm very excited about. I love it. I love stock car racing. Honestly, Daytona was the most fun I've had in a very long time. The team were awesome. The car was fantastic. It was just so cool. I was so happy, and I was like, hey, if I get the opportunity to do more of this, I'm absolutely going to take it. Like, I honestly can't tell you how like this renewed sense of how awesome everything is over there. Like, everybody's been so sweet and so helpful and so, like, yeah, it's just been great. I'm having a blast, and that does not escape me how lucky I am to get to do this. So, yeah.
So,
here I am.
Katherine Legge joins us. So, a couple of things occur to me here. One is preparation. How are you doing that this week leading up to? And you can go back to back on these answers here. I'm assuming you're leaning on somebody that has been a part of races like this for a long period of time for advice going in. Who might that be?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I obviously have BJ McLeod, who runs Live Fast Motorsports, owns Live Fast Motorsports, and has a ton of experience. So I've worn him out on the help and advice and everything else. And then I'm good friends with Andy Lally. Andy and I have been friends and teammates for a decade. So I made him come over and watch old reruns of races and in-car video and stuff like that. So I have some good friends. I'm also really good friends with AJ Allmendinger from his time in IndyCar. I've known him for 20 years now. And so no doubt I will be in his trailer going, hey, where do you do this? What do you do then? And, wearing him out too. So I've got some good resources right there.
You working on a simulator too, leading up to?
Yes, sir.
What does that entail, Katherine?
I mean, so many things. I have never been a gamer, and I never grew up driving sims. It's just not my thing. And I get sick a lot on motion sims, so I have to take pills. But I've been so lucky that people are really helpful and really kind. And so they've kind of rallied around to help me on the comfort level and experience of driving the car before I drive the car. And the only way you can do that, because there's no testing in Cup, is to do it on the sim. So I was spent the last 2 days on the RCR sim, actually the static sim there, and they've been amazing. Like, I cannot thank them enough for what they have done. It's been invaluable. It's been great. And then tomorrow I go to GM and I drive the DIL sim, the full motion one. So that's going to be great too. Very lucky to have the help and support that I've had, quite frankly.
Katherine Legge joins us. Again, you know her from IndyCar, obviously, but her Cup Series debut in Avondale. It's Phoenix coming up on Sunday. In NASCAR, I would have to assume this, and you can play off of this with your answer. This has to be really important to get a good job behind the wheel this weekend and work this thing on merit, because of those that could use this as a great example that are coming up behind you.
Yeah, I think it's critical because all eyes will be on me. And, there's supposed to be no pressure. There's supposed to be no pressure because it's not the fastest car in the field, right? So no doubt if the car could finish 35th, then that's as good as I could hope for. And with my lack of experience, I don't have any aspirations of doing anything else. And if I did, then I would literally overdrive the thing and probably end up in the wall, which I don't want to do because I have to show NASCAR that I am a competent race car driver in order to get opportunities to do more, right? So I don't know. I think everybody within the sport understands that. The fans maybe not so much. And so I do worry that it's going to look a certain way to the outside world, although I can't think about that, right? Like, I just have to go out there and do the job that I have to do. And as long as I do the best that I feel like that car could have done, then I'm happy, whether people understand that or not. But I know that NASCAR will, and that's what's important at this stage, is getting the opportunity to do more, because that's inevitably what will prove my worth to everybody, and myself included. Like, what can I actually be capable of in a Cup car? Will they respect me? How I go about it is going to be key to that, and so I can only do what I can do with the cars that have been dealt, and I feel incredibly lucky to have been dealt these cars. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to enjoy it no matter what, and you can't tell me that if you weren't in the same position or anybody wasn't in the same position, they would of course jump at the opportunity, right?
There's no doubt about that too. And see, you mentioned this really without saying it outright. You're going to be under a different, whether you want to call it a microscope or a spotlight than anybody else in this situation. And you mentioned how critical this is. That's just yet another reason why ultimately this is going to be critical on Sunday for you.
Yeah, I think I can't make the same joke over here that I make at home because it makes no sense. But I would say it's like Marmite. And for those of you who don't know what Marmite is, it's like a spread. It's like Vegemite.
Yeah.
But the tagline was, you either love it or you hate it. So I think everybody has an opinion. Everybody feels like they have an opinion on whether I'm good or bad or indifferent or whatever it may be. But I don't fly under the radar. You know, I wish my first Cup start would fly under the radar. But in a way, that's why I'm able to do the things I'm able to do, right? That's why I have sponsors and people helping me, is because of the publicity that it gets. So I'm not immune to all of the nuances of it. It's a lot, like, to have that spotlight and that microscope on you, being critical of every move that you make. Like, a lot of people get to make mistakes in private before they move up, you know?
Yeah, the number 78 drop light Chevrolet Camaro will be wheeled by Katherine Legge coming up on Sunday in Phoenix. I'm not going to use the word nervous, but I will ask you what makes you most anxious about what this weekend, this Sunday, this first time is going to entail.
I would say all the auxiliary stuff outside of the driving, like with the driving, but like pit stops, where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, there's a level of comfort that comes from doing things and being in situations that you know. Like, I could drive an IndyCar race or a sports car race, know where I've got to go for driver's meeting, know where the credential office is, know when I've got to be on the grid, know where to stand, know where the restrooms are, know where the driver introductions happen. All the things. I know what happens under yellow. When I leave pit lane, I don't have to worry about switching pit lane limiter off and leaving pit box because I just do it. Like, subconsciously, I just know. I know nothing in this world, so I'm going to consciously be thinking about everything, and it's a lot. And so I just don't want to make any mistakes in all of that stuff. The driving, I feel like once you're out there, I'll get a feel for it, and I'll just keep improving and getting better. I just want to get the other stuff programmed in my brain, so I don't feel like a fish out of water. It's like, I can only describe it as this. It's like starting a new job. For the first week or so, you don't know where the bathrooms are. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. You're being onboarded, and it's a lot to take on, and how you remember everybody's names and everything like that. Like, it's the same thing for me. I'm starting a new job, and I'm gonna look like a little bit like I don't know what I'm doing to start with, I guess.
Hey, one more thing before I let you go. Katherine Legge joins us. 7 years ago, it was the last time a woman was in a NASCAR Cup event, and that was Danica. And obviously, Danica had a first time in a NASCAR Cup event too. Have you talked to her about what she experienced in her first time behind the wheel?
No, not at all. I don't have Danica's number. I have known Danica for, I don't know how long. For 20 years, I guess, but not in any way, shape, or form to correspond with. Like, she was always, as far as female drivers are concerned, on her own island, and so I don't know. I feel like it's probably not relevant information anymore. Honestly,
yeah. I get that.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because if you're conversing with other drivers that are in it right now, you really don't need it. Right? You're getting the information that's necessary.
Yeah, and I'm very cognizant of her and what she went through and how well she did, and I respect her a bunch as a driver. I think it was harder for her than people give her credit for, because we've had the same life experience pretty much. She was in good equipment, but I think she had a pretty hard time of it too, and isn't shown the respect that maybe she did deserve. But I hate with a passion that everybody compares us and lumps us together. And they do it to other people coming up, like, oh, you're the next Katherine. I'm like, she's not the next Katherine. She's herself. We don't say, oh, look, it's the next Joseph Newgarden, or oh, look, it's the next Jimmy Johnson, oh, look, it's the next whoever, just because they're guys. But they do that with us. And so it's like, I'm just another driver. And so, yeah, I feel a certain way about that, I guess.
It's Katherine Legge with us, and here's hoping we see you in the month of May here in Indy as well. But have a kick-ass weekend, and especially on Sunday. I am going to watch now because we had this conversation, and we're going to root like hell for you on Sunday.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, and thanks for the chat. It's been fun.
We'll look forward to the month of May around here, hopefully, too.
Yeah, let's see, but fingers crossed.
You got it. Katherine, thank you. The best of luck to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Katherine
Legge, NASCAR event, Avondale, coming up on Sunday. That was really good stuff right there. The podcast at 1075thefan.com. Shout out to Tony Donahue, who set that up, the former producer of this show. Well done right there. That was interesting stuff with Katherine Legge. Quick break. We'll come back. Iron Eagle, top of the hour, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
That's right, it sucks.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Katherine Legge podcast, 1075thefan.com. The number 78 Drop Light Chevrolet Camaro in her Cup Series debut at Phoenix coming up on Sunday. Very good stuff right there. Katherine Legge, Sydney Parish, final season as a Hoosier, the former Miss Basketball in the state of Indiana. You get IU Oregon coming up tomorrow at noon. That's an 8-9 game, officially already underway with the Big Ten Women's Tournament. And again, IU and Oregon tomorrow. That is underway at noon. All right, Dustin DePurac, a little bit earlier, we talk Rockets Pacers from last night, all over IU, Oregon, and Purdue, and Rutgers, and Kevin Bowen regarding the Colts on free agency, the quarterback search for competition, or just an ample backup to Anthony Richardson, with Kevin Bowen a little bit earlier as well. But back into basketball we go. The voice of the Final Four. I mentioned the Big Ten Women's Tournament going on right now. The men's tournament forthcoming as they round out the end of the regular season. That is this weekend. And Ian Eagle, the voice of the Final Four, TNT, NBA play-by-play man. Ian's going to join us. That is coming up on the other side. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio. I've got stuff to give away too. That, of course, includes, are you ready? Mary J. Blige tickets also coming up. So sit tight. Ian Eagle, your chance to win after 5 o'clock. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, it's been a busy day so far. I got tickets to give away before we bail at 6. Katherine Legge, 17th woman to run a NASCAR Cup Series event. First time since Danica did it 7 years ago. She joined us, podcast 1075thefan.com. Really good conversation there. Sydney Parish of IU a little bit earlier as well. And Kevin Bowen was here. Dustin DePurak was here. Next week, by the way, if you're asking, with the fellas here for the Big Ten Conference Tournament. Good friends of the show, Matt Painter, the head coach of Purdue, is dialed in and good to go. And Dusty May, my good high school friend's going to join us coming up of Michigan next week as well. So we'll have you loaded up and good to go for that Big Ten Men's Conference Tournament. They round out the regular season. I'm assuming part of the action coming up this weekend, along with the NBA action, both of TNT and CBS. The voice of the Final Four, he's our good friend Ian Eagle, who checks in on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Ian. How are you?
Hey, JMV, your intuition is correct. Michigan State on Sunday on CBS.
That's meaningful right there. What do you make? Dusty May and I went to high school together. So very small rural area down in southwestern Indiana. You're number one in Ann Arbor for Dusty. What do you make of it?
It's been tremendous. Bringing credibility to the program, doing it with a lot of Band-Aids, but recognizing that they had to get the culture turned around and plant some seeds. I think the roster will look very different next year, but the job that he's done, instilling some confidence, getting some adults in the room to join the program, and it showed. They're fun. They're competitive. They're not going to win a national championship this year, but I think everyone can see what is starting to germinate in Michigan, and obviously the athletic department recognized it and didn't want him going to the Indiana Hoosiers anytime soon. They lock him up long term. Dusty is an impressive guy, as you know. He's the real deal. And there's no doubt in my mind that he will sustain success in Ann Arbor. And that's what they needed. They needed to get the thing turned around and get it turned around quickly.
And if there was going to be one thing that maybe even more so impressive is, and this is obviously old hat for somebody that's been there and done that and a Hall of Famer and all of it, but you mentioned your matchup that you're calling coming up this weekend. The job that Tom Izzo has done in the land of Sparty with this group, they just keep on keeping on, Ian.
Yeah, and they're just old school. There's a way in which they play that would fit in basically any era. They're not obviously tied to the three-point line. It's not their strength. They find other ways to win. They find other ways to beat you. And then the emergence, of course, of Chase Richardson has been apparent that he's a legitimate talent. He was coming off the bench. He's no longer coming off the bench. He is part of the starting five because he's one of the go-to guys now. The excitement that Cohen Carr brings with that second unit, the steadiness of the rest of that group, the mix and match of big men. It's a classic Tom Izzo team. They play ridiculously hard. They'll run through a wall for him. And I don't know in terms of NCAA tournament yet because we got to see who they're matched up against, what their path looks like. But they certainly are capable of making some noise, and there's a belief there. They believe that they can play with anybody. You know, and I know, JMV, now it's hard to gauge how your conference is going to look. I've seen years where everyone thought the Big Ten was down, and they went out and really played well in the NCAA tournament, and years where they thought the Big Ten would dominate, and they came up short. Where this year's iteration fits in still remains to be seen, but Michigan State's been the most consistent of the bunch, and they find ways to win. They're just capable of coming up with a new method in which to get a W, and to me that says a whole lot about their head coach and about their squad.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Ian Eagle joins us, the voice of the Final Four, CBS, TNT's. You got Brooklyn and Golden State coming up tomorrow night. We'll jump to the NBA with Ian in just a second. All right, you're going to be here for the Big Ten Conference Tournament, right? Saturday and Sunday coming up? next week?
Yeah, doing semis and doing the championship game on Sunday. So looking forward to it. Obviously, Indy's a tremendous host, the perfect town for it because of the passion and then the convenience. You don't have to get in a car.
Both are very good. Passionate and very convenient.
It's a good descriptor. I would take that as a plus, and I'm absolutely saying it in the best, most positive terms.
No, it's understandable. It's funny. You look at the Big Ten landscape, and probably the thing that really steps off the page for me more than anything else is Wisconsin, and not because the level in which they win, but it is the volume in which they score, because they win in the fashion in which we're just not used to seeing Wisconsin do that.
Yeah, I've seen them this year in person. Obviously, I've had them a lot through the years, and Greg Gard, I think he's getting more credit this year than ever before, and maybe that is not fair because he probably should have deserved a lot more credit prior. He's really done an excellent job with the program, picking up where Bo Ryan left off, maintaining some of the same principles. But now you're seeing him start to break away, recognizing what you need to do in this current landscape to win and to win consistently. And they're offensive-minded, they're creative offensively, and he's got some guys. He's got big-time players at the program that I think he now can show the rest of the world out there, high school recruits and coaches, that, no, we could play that style. We're not going to hinder you from getting to the NBA or playing professional basketball because we're stuck in a different era. And it's a bit of a reflection point for the program. And just, again, personal interactions, I just think Greg is in a really good place. He realizes that they got over the hump. It doesn't mean that you rest on your laurels. It doesn't mean that it's going to change the way they work or the way that they recruit. I think they still look for a certain particular kind of kid, basketball IQ that can play within their system, but they've widened their system. And to me, they've been the biggest pleasant surprise. They were good last year. They got thumped in the NCAA tournament. I call that game in Brooklyn. James Madison out-physicaled them, if you remember.
Yeah.
And I think it moved the needle for them. For Greg Gard and his coaching staff, they probably walked away from that experience and said, we may have to look at this a little differently. And Tanjay's been tremendous. It's funny, I was talking to my son, Noah, who has done a bunch of their games, and we're talking about Tanjay, and he mentioned that he saw him at the last Wisconsin game and had a chance to chat with him. They were talking about the NCAA tournament. And I said, well, it's going to be great that Tanjay gets to experience it. And he said, no. He played in the NCAA tournament for Colorado State. And then I remembered that I actually called that game and went back to my notes. And it was David Roddy, that squad. And they were good, really good. Nico Medved, head coach. But Tanjay wasn't thought of in that light. And there he was on my board, and I had nice descriptions of him and scouting report. But, he was a third option, fourth option on that team. To see how far he's come in just a few years says a lot about the work that he's put in and the impact that he's had. He's been a great player for them.
Yeah, a couple of things stands out. One is that your board, you're going to have to keep around your board basically for about 5 years or so, because you're going to have three different teams you have to evaluate with these players as they evolve and move around. The other thing is he reminds me of a one dog, if you will, on a Wisconsin team that in this case is surrounded by more offensive weaponry than we have seen. One of those guys, like a Davis, for example, we have seen with a one dog for them in the past.
Yeah, and look, again, so much of this has to do with who you draw, matchups, make fights, so to speak. In the NCAA tournament, we've all seen it year after year after year. You could just get a bad matchup. You could be from a big conference and you play a team once and you just don't have the right read or scouting report on the mid-major that you're going against, and you look up at the end of the game, it's 0-0. You say, how did we lose this game? We lost by 7 to a team that we would probably beat 9 times out of 10. So I recognize that going into the NCAA tournament. There are certain teams, Duke, Auburn, Houston, they just keep showing out. And every time that I've seen these teams on television, I walk away impressed by the depth they have, by the star power that they have. And I don't think that level of team will get picked off in an early round. But the teams that are a little bit lower on that sheet are susceptible because of the way college basketball is set up, especially now. If you actually have chemistry, if you have a few guys that played with each other in some big games, even in lower-level conference tournaments, that could go a long way come NCAA tournament time when you get into clutch moments and you need to make a play.
Well, and chemistry is something Matt Painter has with Purdue because there's not been a venture into the transfer portal. But at some point, that's just going to have to be a year-to-year dynamic to compete. But you look at Purdue, if Fletcher Lawyer had, 24, I think, last night, played really well. Yeah. If he can give them anywhere in that neighborhood, that makes them the best they can be because you can normally count on Kaufman-Wren and Braden Smith, but not always is Lawyer at that level. If he's anywhere near that vicinity of last night, you really like the Boilermakers because of what you talk about there, the continuity.
Yeah, you nailed it. I did that Purdue-Wisconsin game, and it was a fun game, by the way. Wisconsin just had a little too much offense, and Purdue didn't have that third option that you alluded to. Lawyer was okay in that game. He wasn't a standout, and I think it boils down to what you said. In addition, I don't know if they've gotten quite the output from some of the other guys that they were expecting to jump from Colvin year 1 to year 2. There was an expected evolution in some of those guys that maybe hasn't quite come, and that might force Matt Painter to make a move in the transfer portal and get someone that has a little more proven ability as opposed to just waiting for it. But you know this. I know your relationship with him and the fact that he pops on the air with you. He's so ridiculously smart, and he has such a great handle on how all of this stuff works. He's one of those guys, if he wanted to be a commissioner, he would do the job exceptionally well. His viewpoint is so unique, and he comes at it from a different angle. He really has an excellent understanding of college athletics, what makes it tick, and he's a problem solver. So if there's a problem at the end of this season, he'll solve it and come back with a solution next season.
You have Michigan State, and Iron Eagles on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline this weekend. I think also on CBS, this is on Saturday, it's IU Ohio State down in Bloomington. Yeah, IU loses last night at Oregon. Now, they've been playing better recently, and I think a lot of the bracketologists still have them as a part of the field, but is this a play-in situation, at least to end the regular season for both the Buckeyes and IU?
Yeah, it may be. I'm in that time of the year where I'm getting emails every day from Jerry Palm. I don't hear from Jerry for 325 days out of the year. And then, about 30 days prior to the tournament, they start streaming in. And I get it. This is his bread and butter. And it's an ever-changing look at the field of 68. Sometimes Indiana's in it, sometimes they're not, sometimes Ohio State's in it, sometimes they're not, sometimes Nebraska was in it, sometimes they're not. It's been a bit of a revolving door at the bottom of the Big Ten. So it's a big game. Had Ohio State 2 weeks ago at UCLA, and they were banged up, weren't quite themselves. UCLA handled them at home, and it just feels like they're on a very tenuous path right now. On the edge, are they capable, like they did last year, of going on a run and maybe making some noise? Possibly. And they've got talent. There's no doubt about it. Big Ten tournament's going to be wild. I can tell you just from a play-by-play man's point of view, you hedge a little bit because I'm doing the semis and the final, and you can't just start from scratch when the quarters are done. You got to have some work already finished. So I've had a bunch of teams, and I'm going to have to make a decision here in the next few days if I want to start working on a couple of the other teams that I haven't had, just in case Oregon makes a run or Indiana makes a run. that's the nature of the beast. It happened last year, Northwestern, if you remember. They were right on the edge of maybe jumping into the semifinals, so I just committed and did a Northwestern board just in case, and then boom, they popped up in my Brooklyn bracket in the first round. So sometimes the basketball gods are looking down on me.
Yeah, that's good. It's passionate and it's convenient, so you can do those boards here at Indy, man.
Exactly.
Well, it is what's going to happen is it's going to stay passionate, but it's going to become less convenient when it goes to other places we now know on the horizon in the Big Ten. So prepare for that.
I know. It's part of the deal. And
the shuttle bus or the car, the driver and things like that are in your horizon. Yeah.
Well, and in the world of how does it affect me, which I'm not a narcissist by any stretch of the imagination, when the Big Ten announced the plans and moving the West Coast teams into the mix, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it hit me when I took a flight to UCLA for Bruins and Buckeyes in February and a red-eye home for an NBA game. I'm like, oh, yeah, that does affect me somehow. So it's all good. It's fun, and I think it's added a different dimension. Obviously, the travel challenges for these teams, that's going to be something they have to study and accumulate data on how best to handle it. But it's the first year, and the fact of the matter is the way college athletics are going, you got to plan for the future, and I think that's what the Big Ten did. They saw something on the horizon and realized, hey, we don't want to get stuck with the music playing and no chair.
Yeah, one of these days you'll be doing NFL games and you'll have a season-long home schedule to deal with in Europe. So be ready for that too.
Dude,
right?
you may not be far off.
No. I mean, listen, you know this. You know this even better than I do. Anybody really that's listening out there, that there's no way they're not going to give this a try at some point. Maybe we're all done with it. Maybe you and I are both done by the time that takes place, but at some point it's going to happen.
Yeah, and Super Bowl, which everyone just always assume, no, you can't do that. Yeah, you absolutely can, and they may.
Yep, because you're always looking for that next dollar and escalating that too. Warriors Nets for you tomorrow night too. What do you think about the Jimmy Butler effects with Steph Curry and the Warriors, the team you're going to see tomorrow night?
Yeah, I had them last night. I had Warriors Knicks on TNT. It was a great atmosphere. Steph and Butler come alive in the second half. Steph hit some wild shots, and Golden State runs away with it at the end. I just think what you did in Mike Dunleavy, the GM, the decision maker, he brought someone with a ridiculously high basketball IQ in Jimmy Butler, and then paired him with two guys that are in the same category, Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And that's not a knock on Andrew Wiggins. It's not a knock on other players that have tried to mesh with the two mainstays, Curry and Green. It's just a real credit to Butler for them to gel so quickly. They're just playing a game of chess out there. They're seeing things that others are not seeing, and it's been beautiful to watch. They're 9-1 with Butler in the lineup, and as Steve Kerr put it to us when we sat down with him, production meeting prior to the game, he said, everybody in the locker room knows we can play with anybody. And that's an important classification to be in the NBA. When you know you're going to have a chance every night on your schedule, no matter what, because you've got the right kind of players and the right kind of guys that are willing to go the extra mile. And I think it's rejuvenated Curry. It has certainly now provided a jolt of confidence for this team, and it's going to be fun in the Western Conference. There are teams that are fading fast, and there are teams that are rising. And the Warriors are one of the teams that's currently rising.
With Curry in mind, and what occurred to me in watching it last night and listening to you guys talk about it was, before Butler, it seemed like so much was late clock desperation, kind of like Curry, miracle shot for others, not so much for him. He's now getting opportunities, Ian, to step into things, and those are layups when he has, opportunity to step in and not too much of a closeout on him. And a lot of that is because of the presence that Jimmy Butler now has with his team.
100%. The fact of the matter is you have to respect Butler as a driver. You have to respect him as a passer. You have to respect him as a playmaker and decision maker. And you're right. It has alleviated a lot of the stress. And if you want to double up on Curry, you can. You're going to risk the fact that Jimmy Butler is going to make you pay, or Draymond Green is going to make you pay with one extra pass to get a layup for Quentin Post or Guy Santos, guys that don't necessarily pop up in the scouting report. And to me, that's Warriors basketball. There were big smiles across the faces of the Golden State Warriors for them to diffuse the MSG aura in the way that they did in the fourth quarter. No Karl Anthony Towns, and you do have to factor that into the equation. They, in the fourth quarter, didn't have a bread and butter offensively. Once the Warriors locked in on Brunson, which they did, Brunson came back, 7:45 mark of the fourth quarter, and he really was a non-factor the rest of the way, and that's when Golden State just ran away from the Knicks. I think now with the Lakers and obviously the good feelings that they have with Luka now part of the team and Butler on Golden State, it has shifted the way you're looking at the Western Conference. To me, everybody was locked in on OKC and Denver, two best teams in the West, and now you have to mention the Lakers and you have to mention the Warriors, and depending upon matchups, if you're one of the top 2-3 seeds in the West, you may draw a Golden State in the first round and say, wait, what happened here? We earned one of these top seeds, and we're going against that team? That could be a tall order for a younger squad like an OKC.
He is Iron Eagle on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'll ask you this because you've been around this situation for a while, and who knows, the Pacers may end up with a matchup with the Knicks as they found themselves in a year ago. But is the Thibodeau regular season excessive minute situation, as it also affects the postseason, is that at the top of the list of, let's just say, for example, Knicks fans and their concerns as we hit the stretch run of the regular season?
The number one concern right now from Knicks fans, whether they want to admit it or not, is the fact that they are 0-for against Cleveland and Boston and 0-for against OKC. So they do have wins over Denver. They have wins over Memphis. They have quality wins, but they have cleaned up against lesser competition. They are 15-0 against the bottom 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. So they're now 40-21. They were 20 games over 500 entering action yesterday. And anyone I talk to that roots for the Knicks, it will come up at some point that the resume isn't as gaudy as they would like it to be. Now, can that change? There are going to be some opportunities along the way. We asked Tom Thibodeau about it yesterday, and he said, look, we can look at all those matchups. You can determine that there are some things that factored in, whether it was the second half of a back-to-back or a team that was on a long layoff or it was travel compared to a home, whatever it might be. They believe that they're good enough to compete, but they just haven't shown it against elite competition. The second part is what you just mentioned, JMV. They play their starters a lot of minutes, and the cumulative effect that may have on a team, you never quite know. Tom has been doing that forever. He's had a lot of success, but you run into a buzzsaw in the conference playoffs and a team that does have some depth, Indiana in particular, they can mix and match. They can keep their guys fresh. The one difference come playoff time, the schedule. You are getting rest. You are getting days off in between. It's either every other day or then depending on TV, you might get 2 days off because they want to line it up with a good TV window. So that's the one thing working in their favor, and I do think that's the panacea that Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks are looking towards, that they're going to have a little bit more of a routine come playoff time.
Tyrese Haliburton here has been spectacular since the All-Star break. And I'd said going in that this team, and obviously Siakam went to San Francisco for the All-Star game, and that's great, but everybody else got time to rest. And I thought that this team was in need of a long nap, and it starts with him because he's the guy that gets everybody else going, and then he has to make sure that his offense is going as well. He's been spectacular since that point in time.
And he looks healthy. We never quite know what these guys are feeling, and there are injury reports, and there's some information that might get filtered down, and there's some that teams and players keep to themselves because they don't want to give the opponent any kind of advantage. And I get that. There is some gamesmanship that goes into this. I don't think he was healthy. I think if you go back to the Olympic stretch, even though he wasn't really part of the rotation, I'm not sure that he was physically capable of being a huge part of the rotation anyway. And him trying to bounce back from it, trying to work through it, to me it seemed pretty obvious early in the season. And there might be a point of delineation where you said, oh, no, this was the day that I could see the old Tyrese Haliburton back. But now it's the consistency of it. And you laid it out. If they're going to do serious damage in the playoffs, it's not minimizing Pascal Siakam at all. It's just reminding everyone it's Tyrese Haliburton's team, and he's the one that's going to lead them if they do go on an extended postseason run. That's the way it's lined up. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way it's playing out right now.
We are putting up signs as you and I speak. Indianapolis, home of passion and convenience.
I mean,
we're going to leave that one to you.
Those are headlines.
Yes.
That to me, you give that to the Chamber of Commerce. You say,
yes,
spread the word.
I know that I'm doing some live shows. So if we're doing because I know a couple are next to the field house. So if you ever have a minute, we can link up and you want to stop by on your way to the field house before you do a game or something like that, and you have a minute, we'd love to have you. We'll figure all that out as we get closer and the games kind of play out, but we'll leave it up to you. And again, I know I'm doing a lot of live shows down there near the field house, obviously this time of year for the Big Ten tournament. So we'll let you know if maybe you'll have a couple minutes to stop by.
Yeah, at the very least, if you're going to be there, let's make sure that we see one another and
you got that.
Catch up in person.
Man, it's always a pleasure. I always love your insight on here. Keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we get a chance to catch up coming up here next week or something.
All right, bud. Always fun. This is a really exciting, entertaining time of year, so enjoy it. Enjoy the dance. Enjoy the wave. And just ride it right through to the championship weekend in San Antonio.
All right. We'll be there watching every step with you. Ian Eagle of CBS and of TNT. He is the voice of the Final Four on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, Ian.
All right, JMV. See you, man.
Ian Eagle on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline is always tremendous. What a really good day. Podcast we'll revisit and your chance to win. Coming up in just a bit. Josh Howlett says this the right way. Everyone knows all good relationships are built on passion and convenience. That is 100% accurate, my brother. Quick break. Mary J. Blige at the Fieldhouse. Speaking of passion and convenience, the Fieldhouse to watch one of the greatest to ever do it in hip-hop and R&B. That's your chance to win those tickets coming up. And calls at 239-1070 as we close out a busy Wednesday. Sit tight. We're back with you next. The AAA Membership Lounge. Become a AAA member today at AAA.com at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. That Iron Eagle was spectacular just now. CBS and TNT, the voice of the Final Four. I mentioned next week's going to be a big deal because we're going to have a lot of the Big Ten coaches here. I know we're going to have some coaches on. We're going to try to work out, get a hold of Braden. Want to get Braden back on before next week as well. Of course, Friday night for Purdue. Purdue a winner last night, and they just offensively look spectacular. Now, it was a combination. It was red-hot shooting, a spirited effort, and a complete lack of defensive awareness, too, often by Rutgers. But you take advantage of what you take advantage of. That's the type of performance Purdue had last night that you want to see. Now, I mentioned springboards all the time. You got Illinois on Friday night, that really awkward Tuesday night to Friday night stuff, right? You got Illinois, who's looked really good recently. So I thought that was a type of performance, the kind of performance that was necessary. We'll have Matt Painter on the show next week, Dusty May on the show next week, leading up to the Big Ten Conference Tournament as well. Hey, don't forget, tomorrow at noon, and I know that there's not the same juice surrounding our Fighting Trees this season. And I say our for a reason. They're ours. And not the same type of juice that we had at this point last year. But a noon start, and as we had Matt Graves, their head coach, on yesterday, the last thing you want to do is be the first game to see the first team out of a conference tournament. I mean, it's unfortunate, like last night, you had to have losers in that first round of sectional play. And, I mean, poof, you're just in it. Think about that from Indiana State. You start at noon tomorrow. You just absolutely beat the hell out of Southern Illinois. You lose, and you're done. So you're basically done by, 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday or on Thursday? No, in St. Louis. So ride this thing as long as you can. So all of us Sycamore fans tomorrow, that's I say noon or 2? I think that's noon tomorrow, right? So you get Indiana State and Southern Illinois, and Matthew Graves, their head coach of the Sycamores, on the show yesterday. IU Oregon last night, that was a late nighter. I could have told you the dialogue I had with my mom when she called this morning to talk about that game, talk about the Pacers, talk about the Boilermakers and Rutgers. I get the breakdown from her every day, which is good. But IU, again, just unable to close. Yes, James?
Says here, Indiana State at Southern Illinois, 1 p.m. on ESPN+.
1 p.m. ESPN+. Thank you, James. But IU had many a circumstance this season where the execution late was not there, and they failed to close. And you saw that again last night. Again, tough environment, tough situation. Don't get me wrong. I understand that fully. But the execution clearly was not there, and you don't get a win, which would have solidified them in the tournament. Now, I think most people right now, bracketology speaking, believe that they're in, and they're in regardless of what takes place on Saturday, but you need to take care of your business. I think others believe this is a play-in situation between Ohio State and IU. That's coming up on Saturday afternoon, and that is a CBS event. Hey, and a quick shout-out, our good friend Don Fisher. I know that he was on with Jake on Monday, and he was starting to feel a bit under the weather, and my man battled last night. He had a full-blown cold, maybe even more than that going last night during the broadcast. And there's nothing you can do. I mean, you push your way through it. You have Eric Sewer there, and then you have John Herrick back here. But hopefully Don is resting. I know they got home very early this morning because Don gave us the itinerary of them getting back from Eugene, Oregon, very early this morning. So hopefully he has been sleeping and or resting and taking in fluids all day and be good to go coming up on Saturday, and certainly on Friday when he joins us. but he was grinding through it last night if you were listening to that on 93 WIBC. So you had that. You had the Pacers over the Rockets, a 17-point advantage, and the Rockets go in front, and then the Pacers reestablish, and they win going away in a game that they were minus 23 on the glass. And you're going to go, well, how can you survive that? Well, you can survive that because the Rockets missed 13 free throw opportunities. And as Dustin DePurak, who joined us a little bit earlier, explained, you think about all the offensive rebounds. 6 of 20 on second chance opportunities were the Rockets last night. So we'll say this, the Pacers hung with the second chance opportunities. And I'm reminded of this. There were at least a couple of instances last night where Sengun had like a very fortunate bounce of the basketball on a second chancer and just had a layup putback. So even though they were getting to the offensive glass and even though they dominated on the offensive glass, there was still the missed free throws and the fact that the Pacers did hang with it. And the final 6 minutes was fantastic with Haliburton and fantastic with Miles. And he was a difference maker in the lane. There's no doubt about that defensively. You either saw it in terms of blocks or you saw it in terms of the Rockets being hesitant about venturing into the lane, and that is something this team needs. Defensively, this team has to have it because far too often guys get into the lane. But last night was a fantastic close. You know, as bad as IU was at closing out a game, yeah, not so much for the Pacers last night. This a little bit earlier today, James, since the 1984-85 season, the Pacers are, you ready? 11-61 when out-rebounded by 20-plus. The biggest margin, minus 27 during a 95, or during, I should say, the 95-96 season. It was a 91-84 win at Dallas. They were minus 27 in that game. 11-16 in games like last night. So they did hang with it, and then obviously you saw the Rockets oftentimes unable to take advantage from the free throw line, missing 13. But a really good win at home for the Pacers. They go back-to-back Thursday, Saturday down in Atlanta versus the Hawks, Monday at the United Center against the Chicago Bulls. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Final time at 239-1070 if you want to go there. We'll set you up for tomorrow's show. And again, recap what was a major busy show, including Katherine Legge, the 17th female to race in a NASCAR Cup Series event in Phoenix on Sunday. And you know her from IndyCar around here, but a very good story. And she was fantastic a little bit earlier with the podcast at 107.5, thefan.com, in her preparation for doing something that she has never done before. Quick break, we'll come back. Also, your chance to win. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
watching. You lose. Good day, sir.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, you got to check it out. Mary J. Blige. Tickets available. Cambridge Fieldhouse coming up on April the 21st. That's a Monday night. This is a hell of a song right here. Number 9 at 239-1070 is going to go on us. Well, the realization is from everybody that puts on, that promotes concerts in and around this area, is that this is an incredible vehicle, an incredible tool to promote and to get to absolutely everybody, including those R&B and hip-hop fans, and Mary J. Blige certainly is the queen of that. Number 9 at 239-1070. Again, will go on us. April 21st, that's a Monday night at 7 o'clock. I promise you will not want to miss it. It will be a blast. I did not recognize this, and Kevin Bowen and I didn't talk about it too much. We just kind of talked about the surface stuff with the Colts and quarterback situation and all that. But Dio Adengbo, I saw this from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, who is spotlighting what he believes to be those that will be getting a significant market raise, which makes you wonder if he ends up someplace else because of what others will pay him, and the Colts maybe will not. Mike Chappell's going to be on the show tomorrow. We'll revisit that point and then some, I'm sure. But it has been an incredibly big day, just an incredibly big day in terms of teams positioning for free agency. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Seahawks, once traded. Tyler Lockett's career is over in Seattle. He's been a mainstay for a number of years at wide out there. So a change dramatically in the wide receiving landscape with the Seattle Seahawks. Christian Kirk was a guy that was noticeable a couple of years back who was brought on as a free agent and really helped Jacksonville. They are parting with him as well. So some changes are being made, dramatic or otherwise, to position these teams for free agency, either to deal with their own to bring them back or to find something a little bit new. And the Colts certainly will be one of those we'll follow. Legal tampering on Monday, and by this time next week, we will be waist deep into it. Damon writes this, JMV, your thoughts on the 18-team Big Ten Conference and the NCAA tournament? It's like 500 in the Big Ten will get you in. And why not only play everyone just once? I haven't followed the conference standings and may not watch the Big Ten tournament at all, except I do love ball. It is kind of weird that not everybody participates. I will say that. I don't know, Damon, in the question that you're asking, they tried their damnedest to find a way that makes it as fairly balanced, competition-wise, for everybody as possible. I just don't think it's always going to be balanced, because when you have teams in Oregon and Washington and California, as we talked about a little bit earlier, you got to make actually, Sidney Parish is the one that brought this up. Again, IU-Oregon coming up tomorrow, the 8-9 game of the Big Ten women's tournament tomorrow afternoon at noon at Cambridge Fieldhouse, but brought up how, those West Coast teams, because she was a member of one then, not when obviously Oregon was in the Big Ten, but how they have to make that trek here more than once, a couple of different times for that. So I think they try to find that competitive balance. I don't know if they're able really ever to find that. So Sidney Parish, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that podcast, 1075thefan.com, the former Miss Basketball of the state of Indiana. Dustin DePurak of the Star, Pacers' big win over the Rockets. We discussed. Dustin's on a podcast, too. Katherine Legge, first time ever in the NASCAR Cup Series on Sunday in Phoenix. Katherine joined us a little bit earlier Ian Eagle of CBS and TNT, and Kevin Bowen of the Fan Morning Show, the podcast, 1075thefan.com. Congratulations to our Mary J. Blige concert tickets winner. James, great job out of you. You guys have been fantastic today. Do it again tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and warmer temperatures on the horizon as well. Springtime's going to officially at least be here for a minute next week. That and more tomorrow at 3. Have a great night.